Cool. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Away Games, Chicago Cubs podcast, usually hosted by myself. I'm a Kevin, and an Adam Mamawala usually is the other person I'm talking to here, but he is in Colorado right now. He's doing a thing called NACA, which in the comedy world is basically performing for college students, and then they book you. If you're at a college, you should book Adam because he would like money. So do that. And instead of Adam today, what I have is I have my brother, and the one brother who's not, I don't think, been on this podcast yet. Have you?
No, I have not. This is the first time.
Baby's first. This is my brother, Pat McCaffrey, from Chicago right now. And it's almost news that you're telling me right now. What are you watching on TV?
So I finally was able to find where Marquee is on my... Thankfully, AT&T Uverse, which is the only time I've said that in my life.
Sure.
But I know a lot of people with Comcast are struggling and missing out on their sweet spring training content. So, right for the last hour, I've been watching. What was on first was some sort of the #1 sports gambling network, VSiN.
Okay.
And then right now it's something called Inside the Association, where two guys in executive chairs, no podium, with an iPad are just talking about the NBA.
I mean, this is exactly what we hope to get from Marquee at the beginning.
Very weird. In the sports gambling one, these guys are at least actually the Cubs were mentioned once when the guy said, "I grew up a Cubs fan, and no one throws complete games anymore."
That's fun. So we have it's really advanced analytic shit happening.
They were talking about sports betting of all types and said at one point that this is a big game for East Tennessee State.
Oh, God, is it ever? I mean, everyone's talking about it.
Yeah.
I do like gambling. So the reason Pat is on here, besides the fact that Adam is just gone for this week only. Adam will be back next week. But Patrick, myself, and my other brother Joe spent the weekend in Arizona for the opening of spring training. And speaking of gambling, we did actually try to gamble.
Yeah, that did not go well.
Yeah.
Phoenix is not really competing well with Vegas. I mean, we tried to. I'm sure you were talking about when we tried to go and see the big game. By that I mean the big fight, the race war.
Yeah.
But we tried to see the Wilder Fury match, and
at a casino. We figured it would be because after it was the Saturday, so that was the first game. It was the Cubs versus A's at the home Sloan Park, and then we tried to go after the game to watch that, and figured we'd bet because why not? Neither one of us is a boxing fan particularly, but sure, let's waste some money. By the way, this is a great time to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Thrive Fantasy, and you can use the promo code AWAYGAMES to get a free $10 bonus for your $10 deposit, and they will actually let you gamble on props every day. We go in to this casino, and just assuming it's a fight night, there's not a lot of big fight nights. You're going to be showing it, right?
Yeah, and there was a million TVs. Some of them were obscured by by all the smoke in there from their second-rate filtration systems.
Yeah,
but million TVs, a lot of them showing crappy college basketball games. And only one room for the Wilder Fury match that was completely sold out and had been since 5 p.m.
Just a sports bar. It's a big ass casino. This is it's the one. There is a casino just north of Sloan Park if you haven't been before. So I mean, if you want to do other kinds of gambling, I guess you can. But
it seemed like it was plenty busy. It was a Saturday night, so seemed plenty busy, and there seemed like a ton of other people that were leaving, probably with the same idea that we had, and a lot of money that casino missed out on.
Yeah, they just weren't taking it. So we tried to gamble, but anyway. So that's So we spent the weekend at spring training. Pat and I went once before. This is our brother Joe's first time. We went in 2016. So good omens.
do it again. There was a little bit more excitement that year than there was this year. I mean, the trip itself was very fun. Don't get me wrong, but that was just after everyone had found out that the Baltimore Orioles had messed with Dexter Fowler too much, and that we were actually getting Dexter Fowler back. Yeah. I remember that text chain amongst us. And I think very soon after, we decided to go. You bought the tickets for spring training.
Yeah, we pulled the trigger on it, and this time, who were you most excited to see in person at spring training, Pat?
Is it bad to say Mookie Betts' first at bat with the Los Angeles Dodgers?
That's not bad to say. That's a very good answer because we did, I guess, barely we caught that. Mm-hmm. So the two games we saw this weekend were Cubs versus A's, and that was at the home Sloan Park. And then we went to Camelback Ranch, which is like 45 minutes away in Glendale, Arizona, and they share the Dodgers share the park with the White Sox. And we went to see that, and Mookie Betts was leading off for the Dodgers that day. It's hard to see two better leadoff hitters than we saw this week.
Yeah, we saw Mookie Betts obviously for the Dodgers and Chris Bryant for the Cubs. Mm-hmm. The first game, I don't remember his stat line, but I know it's the first person to get a hit that game because it was a defensive masterpiece was Wilson Contreras with his home run. So that means Chris Bryant must not have gotten on base that first time.
Bryant, I guess not the first time because he came up knocked in two with the second time. So we saw the beginning of Chris Bryant's leadoff career, the beginning of Mookie Betts' Dodgers leadoff career. Sloan Park far outperformed Camelback Ranch, I would say. Our other brother Joe had foot surgery, so we were using ADA entrances and stuff, which parking-wise, fantastic. Chef's kiss, perfect stuff. But believe the hype when it comes to ADA parking.
It was also funny just how ADA-friendly Arizona is, which makes sense, retirees and such.
Yes.
That we would go into a place assuming to find one or two rows of handicap parking, and they're like, no, this entire parking lot is just for handicap parking and slightly closer than the other ones.
Full handicap lots. Yeah, I mean, there's enough so that some of the handicap parking is actively bad to park in, especially at Camelback, I noticed. And the ticket readers were not working at Camelback Ranch, and it was just a parade of assholes at the door trying to get this thing figured out. And in sort of a funny bad moment because there's people, with canes, and our brother Joe had sort of a, what do you call it? A scooter, I guess, of sorts.
A scooter. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a one-legged scooter. And their ticket reader was not working, and they just made everyone stand there for 20 plus minutes. People who cannot be standing. And, they were just completely incompetent. This one guy named Michael, who was supposedly the supervisor, which is a surprise.
I love that you remember his name.
Michael M., I believe. I did write it down because I do hold a grudge. He said that the ticket readers weren't working like a typical female? Is that what he said?
Yeah, and he said it right in front of two middle-aged women that he was making wait with canes, which was not the best move.
No, just a real piece of shit. And then during all this, literally Andrew Friedman, possibly the best general manager in the game, or president, I guess probably, he walked by, and at first they wouldn't let him in either, right?
Yeah, and there was one older woman who had been pretty hapless and not in a lot of ways trying to figure this out somewhat, just kind of throwing her hands up in the air and being like, well, we can't let you in. God forbid you take a lawn seat from somebody else. Yeah. But at one point, the manager who was coming by to try to figure out was like, just let him in. He's just let Andrew Friedman in for the Dodgers, please.
Yes, which I totally get, and that reminds me a quick showbiz aside. When I was a page at Letterman. Which, if you've seen 30 Rock, Kenneth the Page, you basically work with the audience and stuff like that. So that was one of my first jobs out of college, did with a couple of my best friends. And one of my best friends, Elizabeth, who Patrick knows well, they had the Survivor finale in the Ed Sullivan Theater where Letterman tapes. And people weren't allowed to go to the bathroom during the taping, but one guy came out to use the restroom. Elizabeth shut his ass down, and he tried to push by her, and she like yelled at him until someone had to be like, "That's Mark Burnett. That's the guy. He owned, he created Survivor and owns all the shows. He's also a piece of shit. So I'm glad Elizabeth made him wait a little bit. But I think he also was EP of The Apprentice and all this stuff. So yeah, it was a very, it was a moment in my life reminiscent of that, watching some poor person tell Andrew Friedman, who you wouldn't necessarily know what his face looks like, but telling the guy who basically runs the team you can't come in through this entrance, and watching someone else be like, you gotta let this one go, which is true, but you also should let all the people with disabilities in and quit making them wait. So fuck the Dodgers staff on that one. The stadium staff, at least, was terrible.
This is definitely the baseball content that was promised.
Oh yeah, this is what people are getting. It's an inside peek to the first week of spring training. But I think the good thing there is the Cubs did a way better job. The Cubs stadium was way better. So yeah, baseball wise, what was your what were your favorite things of the weekend to see from the Cubs' first 2 official games?
So, I mean, I almost, like, the most fun I had was so we got there late Thursday night, like 11:30, and Friday morning we went and watched John Lester throw some, like, live BP.
That's true. That's a new thing. They had the live BP with the umpires, right?
Yeah, but it sounds like it's one of the fun parts of going down to spring training is you have, like, I'm used to going to Cubs games in the middle of summer around a bunch of people that are there more for the experience at times. Depending on where you sit in the park, that's more so than others. But it's fun to sometimes just say a question out loud and just have some guy who's obviously been there for years just answer your question. And so there was an ump there, and Lester was pitching, and Bryant and Rizzo, and I think even Javi were up there. But there were no strikes being called, so it's hard to tell. And then at one point they would just walk away as if I'm assuming this simulated live BP or whatever, they were struck out. But one of the guys said, "Oh yeah, Lester doesn't want them calling balls or strikes." So it was interesting to see that. I mean, that sort of like, oh, this is how these elite athletes start to get into game shape. But just the fun of watching Wilson and Javi and KB and Rizzo and Hayward take BP just like 30 feet away was really cool. Yeah,
you get to be, I mean, it is, if you haven't been to spring training before, I do think that's the most unique aspect of it, is the getting to be that close to the practice part of it. I think it's cool to see the guys in the actual game too, but, you're seeing, especially early in spring training, as we were there the first weekend, the starters are out of there, and it's funny that, like, they're not just like out of the game, they're out the fucking stadium. Like they get a round of applause as they leave in like the 4th inning. Like all the starters march up the foul line with their bags over their shoulders to go golf or whatever. So it's fun to see some of the guys who are more fringe guys or guys you might see up in the majors a couple years later. But when you go that close to the practice, you get to see only your dudes. You don't have to mess around with the other team. You get to see only your guys up close like that. And it was fun to see that Lester, it makes sense. Bringing the umpires in to call balls and strikes for live batting practice and spring training, that's a new thing. That's a David Ross thing. But it makes sense that Lester would be like, I'm not changing. Like you can put the umpire there, but I don't want to hear him talk. If he wants to whisper what it was to the hitter, fine, but I'm going to do my thing.
I do like the idea of just a man softly saying out of the face mask, just strike,
please don't tell him. And then watch it, and then it seemed like everyone was just taking pitches. A few guys, literally, I think Rizzo, Javi, both just took a bunch of pitches, and it seemed like they were just doing that until Chris took a couple whacks off Lester.
Yeah, and then so that was kind of funny because the thing was like we went through like 2 or 3 batters. We're like, well, I guess they're alternating lefty and righty to give him a sense of like throwing with a actual major league sized human being next to the like standing there, but then suddenly started swinging at a couple, and so I guess I was like, oh, maybe those guys just didn't want to swing.
Yeah, just going up to look. And yeah, it was Javi was the most vocal, it seemed like.
Yeah, that was fun. Like Javi, obviously, he's a guy who knows he's funny and doesn't mind the attention, but just a lot of like frustrated sounds from, because he's hyper competitive, not getting a home run that when he wanted one, just in batting practice on like literally I think the first day of spring training for hitters. So and like fake motioning of breaking his bat. So
yes,
so that stuff gives you like a little bit more of an idea of their personality.
Yeah,
which is easier to see at spring training than when you than like a typical regular season game.
And as you pointed out, just dealing with this is helpful for dealing with other teams' fans. It's helpful for dealing with your mood. It's kind of nice that these games don't matter, especially this early in spring training. It is a looser atmosphere than you're going to see at any other time during the year. And yeah, when we say you're up close, we showed up. I did a lot of Googling trying to figure out when you should show up to practice, and I couldn't really find anything that was super clear. But FYI, if you are going to spring training this year or anytime really, it seems like most of the stuff started around 9 a.m. I think we got there a little after like 10:30.
Yeah.
That first day. But if you get there around 9, they have the schedule up by the Cubs practice field by Sloan Park, and basically a breakdown of what's happening when throughout the day. But really, practice is over, it seems like, by noon, you know?
Yeah, seems pretty nice.
Yeah, it's a good way to knock out your workday, which was fun. And watching, we saw a great group. Basically, it was, as you said, KB, Rizzo, Javi, Wilson Contreras, and Hayward. And by far, it seemed like Javi was hammering the ball harder than everybody in batting practice.
Yeah, I think probably Javi and Wilson. Hayward had some like pretty hard liners, but yeah, those. Javi and Wilson were the only ones who I think might have hit a home run in batting practice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but we're peppering the wall at least.
Yeah, but it's a fun experience, and it's hard. I feel like my recommendation to someone, if they like are trying to figure out when practice starts, is like if you're in the Phoenix area and you see a guy, like an older man who's gotten a lot of sun wearing a Cubs tropical shirt, they'll probably know when it starts, but otherwise I don't think they like make it particularly like publishable on the internet, as far as I can find. Yes, you have to
ask local Phoenix baseball wizards, basically when things are happening. But yeah, it seems like 9-ish you can get there, and then they've got a big a big gift shop there as well, although you can check on Amazon and find pretty much everything about half price than what you're going to see in there, which, again, not to be too complaining about payroll stuff, but my God, they're selling out 15,000 seats every game at Sloan Park. We sat in the lawn, both these games, paid over $30 a pop to be in the lawn, and the gift shop is nuts. They got money. They got more money than almost all the teams. They really do, and it's still coming in. It's in no danger of stopping anytime. Just FYI, so everyone knows, there is just every turn you take, you see how much friggin' money they are pulling in. A can of beer, $13 at Sloan Park.
Yeah, but Kevin, it was a Michelob.
It was a Michelob. There's a premium for a premium low carb option. I get it. Yeah, and then at Sloan Park in the lawn, you got pretty close to a souvenir.
Yeah, it was. So like we had said, when the game first started, I think it was probably a 1-2-3 inning at first. Mm-hmm. From when I recall. We had been drinking like most of the day, so I did not take notes. But I think but then Wilson came up, and he seemed very confident, Wilson, which is fun to see, and had like a couple good swings, and then he really connected with one liner that was pretty obviously out immediately, and I was tracking it. I was like one of the only ones Joe has a broken paw, so he can't.
His other brother.
Yeah. So I got up, started running towards it, and then I suddenly saw like 3 children in my periphery on the blanket and had to stop short. But multiple other people dove onto this family, and I came within just probably like 2 or 3 feet there. And I noticed that I was able to see it on the Marquee TV video that they posted on Instagram.
Oh, so, nice. Yeah.
Just briefly, a man in a black rain jacket comes to the edge of the screen and then respects the family's personal space.
Not everyone.
Me on the video.
Not the guy who caught the ball, but a guy who got close. When I looked down at the aftermath, he was lying like basically spooning a woman. I assumed he was just there, that they were together, and that's just how he fell on top of a stranger, because then he retreated behind us. It's tough. I get it. It's like people want a ball, but my God, people were getting trampled out there. The upside there, you didn't trample anyone. Also, Wilson Contreras hit that ball. I mean, that was 425 plus. We were a long way from the plate. So that was very encouraging.
That's what I'm saying. That was against the starter, right?
Or not a starter, but it was off Trevino, I think, right? I think it was off A's pitcher Lou Trevino, who was throwing like 97.
Right.
That was also one thing I noticed, is that basically the Cubs pitchers across the board, and some of the A's guys too. I don't know how much to trust the stadium radar gun, but the velocities all seemed up for this.
Yeah, I know. People were throwing 95, 96, 97, and then who was it? Was Chatwood that game or the next game?
Chatwood was against the Dodgers.
That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, our starter was even throwing 92, 93, and that was Alec Mills, right?
Yes.
He basically 1 inning, and then they immediately got pulled. And if Mills is throwing 92, 93 first game of spring, I mean, it's hard to believe it's not like speed inflation, because I'm like,
right.
Should he be throwing that fast? I don't know if that's
yeah, that's typically, he's sat around 92 at his peak, but if that is something, I mean, it looked like Dakota Mekas was also, he was hitting 96. He hit 96 at least once, which is more than you expect from him too. So I don't know. I mean, maybe like you can be wildly optimistic and say maybe there's something happening in the quote unquote pitch lab that the Cubs have had. It would be nice to see everyone tacking on a little bit of velocity, but either gut speed inflation in the ballpark, which is very possible, or it's a good sign this early in the spring, because it wasn't just 1 or 2 guys. It seemed mostly across the board.
And they've been there for a couple of weeks, so
yeah, that's true.
That's a good sign.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and then anything else from the... I mean, it looks like... So Contreras homered the first game, and then Caratini went off in the second game.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it doesn't get a lot of attention, just like how good our catching position is.
Yeah.
It's hard to be in a much better position than that. And I know there was talk of like trading Caratini at one point, and but it was pretty exciting. And then also to have Miguel Amaya there too at the same time. I mean, the future is bright at catcher, at least. I know there's a lot of other positions that we don't know what the next year or two is going to look like, but it's pretty exciting. And it's understandable why, when there was talk of Nolan Arenado trade, that Wilson Contreras is pretty much always brought up there, because I feel it's crazy how undersold he is as a star.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the Cubs basically got a framing guru from Philadelphia that I know they're hoping will help Wilson, because that's the only supposed weakness in that game. But yeah, basically you have your catchers covered at every level. You have your absolute starter who's still young. You have one of the best backups in the league behind him, who pitchers just love throwing to. It seems to be a great receiver, and also very good offensively for a catcher, whereas Wilson's good for anybody. And then we got to see Miguel Amaya got in, I think, every game. For like first 3 games, at least the first 2 that we saw. So you have your top 100 prospect there getting to spend a lot of time around the major league team, which is very cool, you know.
also nice for him is that he was making like triple his salary that he's otherwise making right now. So that must also be nice.
Get in there. Hey, yeah, it's fun to see him. Him hanging out there too, and a lot of numbers in the 70s in those late innings. I think Amaya was a 70-something. We saw Zach Short with a 70-something,
and especially it was much more obvious the difference between that like a typical regular season game and spring training. When the second game, the Dodgers just like stopped updating who was pitching for the Cubs.
Yeah, they just quit.
Yeah. There was like 4 pitcher changes, and it was all listed as like Carter. And so I have a feeling there were probably 4 different last names because I don't know that many of those same names. But it was pretty funny. Those times we feel like, oh yeah, this is such low stakes. My only wish would just be that the lines for food and the cost of beer would also reflect those stakes too.
Yes, the lines were much better at Sloan than they were at Camelback. I will say it was the Camelback. It seemed like you had to commit a half inning to getting anything over there, but at Sloan the lines were short, even though it was quite expensive. Yeah, I think that's most of the baseball things we saw this early in the spring. You're seeing 1 inning out of the pitchers, for the most part, and then the only person I think we saw multiple innings from was Colin Ray in the Dodgers game. Went 2 innings, who had a great year at AAA last year and is on I would say the very outside cusp of that 5th starter spot. But he went 2. Otherwise, it seems like everyone's gone 1. And in the 2 days since we left, the Cubs have given up a bazillion runs, but it doesn't really matter yet. Rowan Wick had a tough day. John Lester had a tough day. But
yeah, and it's also hard to tell, like, are they just going out there working on one thing? Like, are they just working on throwing their breaking ball on the outside corner, and they're just throwing it over and over again, and
right.
that's can't trust this, or is this actually something to worry about? And that's the funny part of spring training, because like it's very easy to just be like, well, that was good, and I'll believe in that, and then also to just discount anything bad that happens as, well, it's just spring training.
Absolutely. I mean, Almora went 4 for 4 with a homer the other day, so obviously he's going to hit 320, and he's going to lock down the center field job. But Rowan Wick is fine. John Lester, 5 runs in 1 2/3. It doesn't matter yet. Wilson Contreras is going to hit 50 homers because he hit 1 when we were there. Yeah, it's a nice. You can sell all the good stuff and just get rid of all the bad stuff.
The nice part about being low stakes is when they take everybody, even like the top prospects out, and you're in that those last few innings, you get to you get to in true Dodgers fashion, like show up. Well, we accidentally showed up late, but that's because of disabilities.
That's their and that's their ticket reader's fault. Yeah,
and then able to leave early if you need to, if you want to actually enjoy the area and try to get to the Wilder Fury fight, or try to get to actual food at a decent time. Yeah.
Any, I guess since this is our inside spring training episode, is there, you have any, what would be some of your tips for like other things to do if people are going to Phoenix? What were the things you like doing?
I mean, I think for a lot of people, it's nice that there's like a casino there.
Mm-hmm.
That's being sort of really fun. Just hope you're not there during like a prize fight. Otherwise, it's a casino, so that's good.
You can do all the normal casino things, right? Very close to Sloan Park, so that's good.
Yeah, but otherwise, it depends on where you're coming from. Like, there's good Mexican food there, but if you're in Chicago, it might not impress you as much. But that's in terms of like food there. Also, there's a couple fun areas. Like we went to Tempe, which is in the around Arizona State.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a fun, more lively area that also depends on how much you enjoy feeling old.
Sure,
that place will definitely make you feel old.
And Pat is 30, so he feels less old than I do there. But yeah, there's a row on Mill down there in Tempe that's just bar after bar for a little bit. So you have that speed. If you want a little bit of the Wrigleyville angle, that's in Tempe.
but if you don't want to drive around to all your bars and get DUIs, the Old Town Scottsdale's area is pretty cool.
That's true.
And they have some like good restaurants and good divey Western style bars there as well. It's just so funny. Also, like all the Chicago, Arizona connections from there, that has to partially be due with obviously people retiring from Chicago to there or transplanting there. But I have to imagine a lot of it is just how long there's been a spring training connection there.
Yeah.
But like there's multiple, like when doing the research in the area, there was multiple times they'd say like the owner of this bar wanted to create a Chicago style dive bar. And also there's Portillo's, there's like Giordano's down there, I think. Like you can go there and still stay very much in your comfort zone if that's what you want to do.
You can have a hot desert Chicago. Yeah. There's as Pat pointed out while we were there, there were several bars that wanted to create a Chicago dive bar experience that had an intentional old look and have been open for 7 years and stuff like that.
But you can't fake the urine smell, so that's not there yet.
No.
We'll see what time can buy them there.
You got to catch up. And we hit up the Biltmore Hotel was nice. We hit that up. Had morning tequila there. Also, you can it seems like they're fine with you tailgating in these places too. So that's good to note if you want to cut down on the beer prices inside. I think that's all I got. Pat, you got any other things to throw on at the end here?
No, man.
Adam's in, as I said, he's went to the big national college showcase. I know you had some hand in working with like entertainment when you were in college, right?
Yeah, I did. I was part of an organization called Star Course at University of Illinois, which it was all student run, and its entire job was to find concerts of varying sizes.
Did you do any comedians or no? Or do you?
No, not.
Do you remember any comedians that
don't like comedy?
So, yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there was a separate part of like the university like the Illinois Union, like that like main. It's like this main shared building on campus, and they would book like comedians. They also would book their own bands too. I went to a Great Mountain Goats show there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But yeah, no, mostly musicians. Like we had Broken Social Scene and Jeff Tweedy and a lot of like 2007 to 2010 era like indie rock.
Those hold up. I feel like Ball State, comedian wise, the main one I remember when I was there was a guy who had a bit go viral, sort of before going viral was a thing. This was a thing people downloaded off LimeWire, and he did a bit where it was Donald Duck giving a blowjob. And that was, it was heady days, quite literally. Back then, that was the one comedian. Oh, and Screech, my future coworker from World's Dumbest, Dustin Diamond, came to our campus too. So I think U of I, entertainment-wise, you guys had us beat. But yeah, Adam will be back next week. Thank you, Pat, for joining.
Anytime.
And follow us at Away Games Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And again, go to Thrive Fantasy, hit that up, use the code Away Games, and you'll get free money on there, and you will get to gamble whenever you want. Thanks for listening, everybody. Bye.